Welcome to Good Vibes, the podcast that brings the timeless beauty of Eishes Chayil into the rhythm of real life. Each week, we unpack one pasuk, not as a shir, but as a spark for honest conversations, refreshing insights, and a little Torah light you can carry with you. Because meaning shouldn't feel heavy, and connection doesn't have to wait for quiet. This is Good Vibes, for the Jewish woman who's doing a lot and still reaching deeper. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Good Vibes podcast. So today we are actually up to Pasuk Ayin. I can't believe that we've made it all the way to Pasuk Ayin. It's really a long time coming, Baruch Hashem. So Pasuk Ayin says, Oz v'hadar levusha v'tischak le'yom acharon, which translates loosely somewhat to, she is clothed with strength and splendor. Oz v'hadar, strength and splendor. And she looks to the future cheerfully, or she will be happy, laugh on her last day. V'tischak le'yom acharon, tischak is laugh, and happy le'yom acharon is last day. So for this episode, we are going to talk about the second half of the pasuk. So on these words, v'tischak le'yom acharon, Rashi brings down and says, I'm going to quote it in English. They need not grieve over the day of judgment, because they will be saved from it, and all the days of their life they will rejoice at the day of judgment. Meaning, an Eishes Chayil, in this case what we're talking about, an Eishes Chayil does not need to grieve over the day of judgment, the Yom Hadin, the day that she will die and stand before Melech Malchei Melachim, the day that she's going to stand in front of Kisei HaKavod, because she's going to be saved from it. And all the days of her life, she's going to rejoice at the idea of Yom Hadin, at the idea of standing before Hashem. Now, meaning she isn't afraid of Yom Hadin. Rashi's telling us she's not afraid of Yom Hadin. She's not afraid of standing before the Kisei HaKavod on her last day. Why? Because she's going to be saved from it. Because she will be saved. She almost greets her Yom Hadin, her death day, with laughter, with simcha. Why? Because she lived her life with this goal in mind. She lived her life, she treated Olam Hazeh as just as a hallway to the next world. She lived her life with the right priorities and the right values. So when she stands in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, she's smiling and laughing. And her whole life, she's smiling and laughing because she knows that she's going to reap the reward on her last day. She doesn't need to worry. Those who don't need to worry to face Hashem must be the ones who live their life with the proper kavanos. So when I hear this pasuk and when I think about this concept of tischak le'yom acharon, like Rashi's telling us, that an Eishes Chayil is really living her life in a way that she does not need to be fearful of dying. She is living her life day in, day out with the proper priorities, with thinking about the future, with thinking about Olam Haba, with thinking about what does Hashem want for me here and now every single day. So on her last day, on the day of her death, after 120 in Mitzvah Hashem, when the Eishes Chayil is before Hashem, she's full of, I almost imagine like her mouth is full of laughter. She's full of simcha. She's ready to face Hashem. She's ready to reap the rewards of her life. Now, actually, this concept brings something to mind. This idea of the Eishes Chayil not worrying about what's to come. It really reminds me of a story that I actually heard in seminary, and it's in Medrash Koheles Rabbah. So it's really like a medrash that I remember hearing a long time ago and still really is something that I think about constantly, and I want to share it with you. And it really touches on this point. So there's a fox and he sees a vineyard, and the vineyard has a fence around it, but there's a tiny little hole underneath one of the fences that he thinks maybe he could fit in. He tries to fit in and he can't fit in, but he really wants those grapes. So he fasts for 3 days until he's weak and thin, and he can shimmy his way underneath the fence. He gets into the fence, and for 3 days he's eating the grapes and eating the grapes and eating the grapes. And oh, they're so delicious. They're the best grapes he's ever had in his whole life. And then he's trying to go out of the vineyard, but he can't because he's too fat to fit underneath. So again, he fasts for 3 days until he could fit through that hole to go out of the vineyard. Now, if we were looking at this fox, what would we tell him? We would tell him, you silly fox, take these grapes and throw them over the fence so that you'll have them where you actually want to be. That you won't be stuck inside this vineyard, this fence, this gated off vineyard. Kerem, anavecha mesukim, aval mai ahanilan. Your vineyard, this vineyard, kerem, your fruit, your grapes are so sweet. But what good do they do for us? What good do they do for us? And this is a mashal, the nimshal, is that the vineyard, the enclosed place, is Olam Hazeh. And outside the vineyard is Olam Haba. And what the moral of the story is, instead of the fox eating all of his grapes inside Olam Hazeh, take these grapes and throw them over to the next world, throw them over past the vineyard so that you have them to reap in the next world. And that really is what an Eishes Chayil is. That's really what we're learning from this pasuk, from this Rashi, that her whole life is for the next world. Her whole priorities, her perspective is all for the next world. She is in this story taking the grapes and throwing them over the fence so she has those treasures waiting for her on her last day. And that's why she's going to be so happy on her last day, because she's going to have all these beautiful, wonderful grapes, quote unquote, these mitzvahs, this mysterious nefesh. All of her life's work is going to be waiting for her there. So today I want to take the opportunity to discuss this further, this idea of living our lives day in, day out, practically having Olam Haba in our minds, having a higher purpose in our minds, thinking, what does Hashem want from me? So that we too can learn from the Eishes Chayil, and we too could strive to be v'tischak le'yom acharon, laughing until our last day, where we'll have benefits to reap. So how can we learn from this on our level? How can we apply this practically into our lives? What tools can we use on a daily basis to implement these thoughts in our lives? This idea of always living for the next world, throwing over our grapes, our treasures for the next world. How do we do that in the daily grind? So luckily, today we have on Rebbetzin Aviva Feiner with us today to shed some light on this topic. Rebbetzin Feiner is a native of Riverdale, and she lives in Yerushalayim for many years. She has been involved with girls and women's Jewish education for over 30 years, and she is currently a mechaneches at Tag High School and a guest lecturer at Stern College for Women. She's a regular contributor to Mishpacha magazine's Family First's Family Fundamentals column. She's also the beloved Rebbetzin of the renowned Weichel and Farakwe. She is regularly invited to lecture worldwide, as well as at various conventions. Many of her lectures can be found on Torah Anytime. Her passion and talent for teaching have been recognized by Jewish communities at large. Thank you, Rebbetzin Feiner, so much for being here and taking the time to be here. Welcome to the Good Vibes podcast, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Racheli. It's exciting to be here.
So maybe you can start by telling us what you think of this idea, this concept that the Eishes Chayil is thinking ahead, is making sure that she's living her life with the perspective and the purpose of Olam Haba, of serving Hashem to her fullest, so that when she gets to the Kisei HaKavod after 120, she has treasures waiting there for her. How do we implement this in our lives?
So I think that we have a duality going on in Eishes Chayil, or we have more than a duality going on in Eishes Chayil, because we always have the Eishes Chayil being something that's referring to the woman, the Eishes Chayil, and we have the Eishes Chayil being something that really is talking about just the midos that anybody has in life, and using the Eishes Chayil as that example. So I think that I'm going to start with general, if that's okay, like who a Jew is, and then attach it to the Eishes Chayil. I really, when I thought of this, and again, I didn't have a chance to check with my husband, because sometimes he'll say, wow, that's mamish emes. But I think there can't be any risk in saying this, because when I think of vatischak, that lashon of vatischak, of the abandoned happiness, that sense of, it's more than simcha, it's a fullness of happiness. We have that also in our Shir Amal's Kuf Chavav, where we say, Az Yemale Sechok Pinu, that when Mashiach comes, we'll have schok. And I think that there's very much a connection between being a person who is Olam Haba oriented and Mashiach oriented. And that is what we are as the Jewish people. We believe in something bigger, we believe in something greater. In fact, a story that I love to quote is a story about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who, not the Lubavitcher Rebbe who's buried here in Queens, actually not too far from my house, but what they call the Friedrich Rebbe, his father-in-law, that he had for many years been teaching Torah already in what was considered communist Russia. And at one point, soldiers stormed his house where he was learning and teaching, and everybody ran out, and he just continued very serenely to be learning at his table. And the soldier came and put a gun to his head. I actually heard this on a tape, if I can date this experience, on a tape from Rabbi Ephraim Waxman. I heard this story, I think, at least 25, 30 years ago. And that the soldier put a gun to his head and he kept learning. And the soldier, said to him, Rabbi, aren't you afraid? And he responded to him, that little toy doesn't scare me. That toy scares someone who has two gods and one world. But I have one God and two worlds. A Jew lives with the reality that there are two worlds, that there's something bigger and there's something greater. And my avoda is to know that I'm making myself the best person for that next world and that I'm going to do that as best as I can. I actually took a quote here that I've been teaching a lot of the Torah of Rav Shimon Schwab Zatzal, and I find it very relevant and very human. And in talking about the Kriya Shema, he says that he would like to suggest an additional meaning of Ubuchoma Odecha, which means literally of all your possessions. But he says you should love God with all your very muchness, which I just like that expression, all your very muchness. This will refer to the extra talents or abilities which HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given a person, ma'od, more than that which he has given to other people. Examples would be utilizing one's great intelligence or musical, or artistic ability or building skills to demonstrate his love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that the concept of knowing that who I am and what Hashem made me and everything that's in my life, I'm living for a higher purpose. And that really is the cognizance of a Jew every day, that I'm living for a higher purpose. Shelo asani gai. You made me part of Klal Yisrael, and I'm living for a higher purpose. V'akeren kayemes la'olam haba. And the reality continues to exist la'olam haba in everything I do. An additional meaning of B'chol Modecha is found in the Mishnah. B'chol mida umida shu moded l'chahave modelo. For every measure, which is the Gemara in Brachos, for every measure which he meets out to you, be thankful to him. Rashi and Devarim renders this dictum, meaning we are to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu regardless of which measure he assigns to us, to be good measure, that a good measure or one that involves punishment. That we have to be makabel, to know that we, with whatever Hashem gives us, we're going to serve him. Be it challenge, be it chesed, be it gifts, we are going to serve him, and we're going to serve him for our whole lives. And we're going to be confident that if I did that if I used what Hashem gave me in my life as best as I could, then I'm confident that things will be good for me, la'olam haba. And that I live with that reality. I live with that consciousness all the time. And that gives me the ability constantly to be happy. And that's really who we are as Klal Yisrael. But tislach li acharon is like, she's like laughing to the last day. I recently returned from Eretz Yisrael. I had a nace that I was able to go for 4 days. And actually, right before I left, I actually didn't tell anybody I was going because I really didn't think I would, but I did. And the first thing I noticed in the airport when we came out of the plane and we walked towards that circle, when you come off the plane and then you walk a little bit in the airport and then you oversee the circle of all the people who are leaving, it was full. In Klal Yisrael, when I went to Yerushalayim, the kosel is full and the cafes are full. And we are one stubbornly happy people. It's really true.
Baruch Hashem.
And that bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that this is what we need to go through. And I'm going to take what I'm going through with the confidence that as long as I'm using it to the best of my ability, as long as I'm doing as best as I can, then this is what's going to give you nachas, then that's what I'm going to do. And I know that right now it's hard, but azim malei sechok pinu. There's a land, there's a place, there's a time for every individual person, la'olam haba, for Klal Yisrael, for Bias HaMashiach. Rav Chaim Vital says that, looking at our pasuk itself, that oz v'hadar levusha v'tislach liyom acharon, that the oz and the hadar refer to a kind of clothing, and that you sometimes have clothing that's very beautiful, that has hadar, and it's made, he says, of meshi v'zahav v'rikma. It's silk and it's gold and it's woven, but it can get damaged very easily. And at the same time, you could have bigdei kraf, you could have clothing of warfare that's tough and endures, but it's ugly, it's not pretty, it's nothing attractive. And that the Torah and mitzvos that a yid accomplishes in life are not only beautiful, but are also strong. And it's with those kind of clothing that we can confidently go to Olam Haba. And he actually quotes here one of our favorites, Miros, which is Yona Matza Bo Manoach, which was written by Rabbi Yehuda Halevi. And he says that is why Rabbi Yehuda Halevi actually quotes this. It's a pasuk from Eov, V'sham Yanuchu Yigyei Koach, that there the people who are tired will rest in Olam Haba. That this life is tiring, and we have to put a lot of effort into serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu each day of our lives and serving Him b'simcha. V'sham yanuchu yigyei koach. But in that world, the tzaddikim will be smechim in that world to come. They'll be happy. They'll be happy that they're there. And that's Yemos HaMashiach. We actually, it's not, I don't know when this is being posted, but we didn't have our Seder that long ago. It's 31 days in the Omer now. And we say on the Seder night, Harachmanu Yom Tilin Yom Shekulo Tov, Hashem should give us a day that's all good, Yom Shekulo Aruch, a day that is all long. We need to bring us to Olam Haba, Yemos Mashiach, Yom Shetzadikim Yoshvim, Vatrotsehem V'Rosheim, that the tzaddikim are sitting with their crowns on their heads. Simcha Kenu Mahem, let's be with them. What a happy place. What a happy place it is for a person who chose HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world and chose to be Mephire, Umeromin, Umegadel, his name in this world. How happy they will be in a world of MS where that's all it's all about. And they'll be so proud to be there. And that's really the role of every Jew, every day of their lives, in everything they do. And that's really very special. But now I want to go back to the woman. And I think that really this parallel works. The woman has a lot in her life. I like to say that Eshes Chayil refers to a very busy woman. Racheli, you're learning, and if you've been studying line by line, this Eshes Chayil, I like to call it her busy hands. How many times her hands are mentioned here.
Yeah.
And all the different things that she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And she lives with that confidence of knowing that she's living for that higher purpose. And that I actually saw that a lot of the Mefarshim connect this line to the pasuk from Tehillim Mem Hey Yudal Kol Kuda Bas Melech Pnima Mishpasos Zahav Levusha, that the kavod of a Bas Melech is inside.
Oh, wow.
And she wears golden raiments. I don't even know what raiments are, but so that we have, two allegories here. She wears golden raiments, and that's in the pasuk in Tehillim. And Shlomo, that's David HaMelech, and Shlomo HaMelech tells us that she's wearing Oz and Hadar, and that either one could really be referring to the clothing that she wears, that she is a regal and royal woman. And that really is how a Yiddish woman conducts her life. That when she walks outside, she looks like somebody who is a Bas Melech. She looks clean, she looks neat, she looks royal, she looks regal, which is obviously the very fine tightrope of fine and good and royal and regal and sanua at the same time, is what she is supposed to be.
Of course.
And that she does wear Oz and Hadar, and she knows that Tisach Liyom Acharon, that she is representing somebody who's going to that world of MS where there's no body to wear clothing anymore, but that she used the body that Hashem gave her in this world to be royal and regal and represent Malchus Shamayim. A beautiful, my husband actually gave me like a Likud Sefer on Eshes Chayil, and I see from Rabbi Yom Tov Al-Tanai, which I don't know who that really is, but he says something very interesting, that Kol Kfuda Bas Melech Panima, that even though she has beautiful clothing and she has beautiful things, she doesn't show them off to everybody. That she's strong in what she does with them, and she's strong in where she takes them, and she's strong in who sees her beautiful things. An example that I really, Baruch Hashem, use. I looked for the book, but I can tell you that I read it many times. There was a woman in this neighborhood whose name was Mrs. Shomkov Zichrono Livracha. She was a survivor of the Holocaust. She left. She had one son before the war, and he was her only son, but she has tremendous yichus and a huge mishpacha from that one son who should live l'orach yamim shanim b'tovim. And in her memoirs, she talks about, I wanted to look up what her maiden name was, but I don't have it. I couldn't find the memoir. She talks about how in Europe, prior to the war, she had been a very wealthy woman, and her father was a very wealthy businessman, and that he once went traveling, and she was one of a number of sisters, and they were all very tall, beautiful girls, and he brought back mink stoles for them, which is like a scarf, and they had a huge house with a lot of land, and he told them that this is to be worn only on our property, which I think is a value that is almost absent in our world today, that just shows everything off. But that the Oz Bahadar Levusha Vatislach Liyamachrom, that she has a perspective of the beautiful things that she has, or of her own beauty, of where it belongs and what she should do with it. And she's confident that she used it properly, so she can move to the next world. Vatislach Liyamachrom. She's happy for that next world. And I think to make it a little more practical, and that's a value that we all can try to appreciate somewhere, somehow in our lives, that not everything beautiful that we have is shown off because we're strong in what we have, in our beauty, and that it isn't meant to be shown off. But also that Oz v'Hadar Levusha, that she wears Oz and Hadar, and I actually want to find, I have a few books open here, that Oz and Hadar are details, are names that we actually give HaKadosh Baruch Hu, okay? If we look at our davening and we look at Hodu, which is something we say very often, we have two lines pretty close to one another. One is Hod v'Hadar lefanav, Oz v'Chedva bimkoma. And Rav Schwab understands this Hod and Hadar, glory, that Hod is glory and Oz is might, and that these are midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rav Schwab in his commentary on these words actually says, do not look for dignity or beauty from any source anymore, for these attributes are only HaKadosh Baruch Hu's. Historically, people who aspired to satisfy their intellectual capacity or their artistic ability were drawn to various forms of religious worship. In this mizmor, we tell the world, all of your intellectual, religious yearnings and desires can be satisfied by coming lefanav. All the glory in the world only comes from serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Oz v'Chedva mimkomo, might is his. The honor and power in world affairs, which you, the combined family of nations, the superpowers, had considered as yours, actually belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I think if these times we really realize this more than ever, right? Is it Trump? Is it this one? Is it that one? Is it Iran? Is it who? Is it Netanyahu? Is it? It's really all the O's in the world belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that the Eishes Chayil lives with that reality, that in terms of her life, she very much encompasses many of the midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in that even though she does not have the mitzvah saseh, she has mangrama of the man, she does keep many of them. And at the same time, she's very involved in intimate things that really very much reflect the midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In that when a mother tends to a child who cannot help themselves, or even children who can help themselves, but helps them anyway, that is mahu afata, is caring and giving and caring in such a great way. And that Oz and Hadar, so that she is very much connected to the glory and strength that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, that he is, that only HaKadosh Baruch Hu really is. But she echoes that in her avoda, and that she lives with the knowledge of knowing that her avoda as a woman is godly, and that she is confident as she moves to the next world. That's who she is. And I think that we all are always balancing in our lives, and that's something we need to make a bigger consciousness all the time. Everything that we do should be serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if it doesn't serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then we shouldn't be doing it. Now, a lot of our physical things, we might think that doesn't serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But I would use something just because you want practical. A woman who exercises so that she can be healthy, so that she can be attractive to her husband, is serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu in that exercising. A woman, and that's Oz v'Hadar Levusha Vatislach Liyamachrom. A woman who exercises because she wants her body to be the best, so she can wear the tightest clothing so she can show it off to everybody else, is taking what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave her, and to quote the Vilna Gaon, it's kenezem zahav be'af hachazir. It's like a golden nose ring in the nose of a pig. So that the Jewish woman should realize and know every piece of her avodah connects to something higher and lofty. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is zones hakol, he feeds all. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings us into this world and gives us our neshama, and we bring children into this world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu enables us to live and to be strong, and we give and feed and clean and tend to that others are well and strong. It's really very much part and parcel of Mahu Afata, and not to lose sight of that reality. There are very often young women who complain, I don't know the last time I saw my sitter. I don't know, the last time I heard a shiur, whatever it might be. You weren't listening to Racheli Fried's podcast, but whatever it might be, and that she just needs to remind herself that this is her Ozen Hadar. Her Ozen Hadar is doing and being, just like we, Lahavdil, the quoted that Rabbi Biton earlier. If this is what Hashem gave her now, it's from that place that she's going to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, and that she's living Ratzon Hashem. Sha'asani kirtzono. This is his Ratzon. His Ratzon isn't that you're running to Shiurim and Minyanim. His Ratzon is that you're doing whatever you need to do right now, and that I am a Sha'asani kirtzono. And if I live Sha'asani kirtzono, that it's with that reality of knowing that I'm living Ratzon Hashem. And I quote my husband's Rebbe Tzvi Berkowitz Shlita. I love this little vignette. A friend of my husband's told him that he met Reb Tzvi, and his 10-year-old son was with him. And his 10-year-old son had the audacity to say, Rebbe, can I ask you a question? So he asked him, Rebbe, what do you think about when you're not learning or davening? And Rebbe answered, I'm just thinking, what does Hashem want from me now? And that's really how we're meant to live our lives. What does Hashem want from me now? And with that confidence, if I live with that reality, if I make that shikol with Oz and Hadar, with strength and with glory and beauty, I can be confident. And really, I think that, Chachmas Nashim Ban Sabesa, I think that's what every Jewish home needs to have. A Jewish home should be strong. It should be a fortress. It should be a place where Kedusha is incubated. And from that place, it will spread. And that the woman, she is the Safa Bayis. She's the gatekeeper of what comes in and what goes out and what's in her house. And at the same time, her house is Hadar.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And something that keeps on coming to mind from everything that you shared is how you shared that Oz v'Hadar could be like Torah and mitzvos, as if we're wearing Torah and mitzvos. And that's why we're going to tischak le'om acharon, that when we wear Torah and mitzvos, so then we are living life the way that we're intended to, and we'll laugh on our last day. And it's just making an impression on me, thinking like our lavush, our clothing, is something that's so physical, that's so physically tangible. And if we really envision wrapping ourselves, clothing ourselves with Torah and mitzvah, so of course we're gonna and something that just keeps on coming up for me when I'm thinking about what you were saying. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Right. And thank you, Racheli. And I think we need to be reminded that that even if we're not at the point or stage in life where we are actually doing practical Torah and mitzvot all the time, if everything we're doing is l'shem shamayim, that is Torah and mitzvot. And that is the Eshes Chayil. I mean, if you read through the Eshes Chayil and everything she's doing, she's in business, she's getting up early, she's going to sleep late. She's involved in a lot of very material things, but it's with Oz and Hadar, and it's all l'shem shamayim. So v'tislach li yamachom. And halavai, there are actual mitzvos and actual Torahs in there, more and more, whatever we can do. But yes, that's what we wear every day of our lives. That's what every neshama wants to take with them to that final day.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Rebbetzin Feiner, for coming on. And thank you all for joining us. Please reach out if you have any questions or thoughts. We would love to hear from you, and stay tuned for some more good vibes. Thank you.